All right, y'all. So the other shoe has dropped. We talked about the other shoe maybe dropping in the last video. We're going to do a very quick refresher of what Batya's position on the Twitter files was.
Not quite the smoking gun it's being touted as. And yet, to Elon Musk, this was proof of the highest form of corruption. As he put it in a tweet responding to those examples, quote, "If this isn't a violation of the Constitution's First Amendment, what is?" I'm sorry, Elon, but not this. The Biden campaign actually comes off better than I would have expected.
All right, so she started off immediately with the not directly from the government defense. We're going to go very quickly through this, or at least make an attempt to. Here was her next little quotable.
Was not in the Twitter files. What the files do show is the same egregious behavior we already knew Twitter engaged in. They reveal how deeply captured the company has been by the left. And this understandably makes conservatives see red, but not everything that's unfair is unconstitutional or threat.
All right. We let her go on more length yesterday, but you can see again, she's harping on that same shit. And then just in case you thought Robby was going to offer up any sort of substantive critique, here's what he had to say.
Very wise words, Batya. I particularly like how you point out the First Amendment issues here at.
We're not going to waste time dealing with the ad, but he says, not First Amendment news. So they were hiding behind that. Now, let's just refresh another thing real quick. They both are well aware of Alex Berenson having been removed from Twitter based on personal requests from the Biden administration while they were in office. Not during the election, not during the campaign stage. So they're aware of that. But they're ignoring it. Now, the other shoe dropped yesterday, and the other shoe was that vetting the documents in between Elon Musk and the reporters, Matt Taibbi and eventually Barry Weiss, was a lawyer at Twitter named James Baker, who just so happens to be the former head counsel of the Federal Bureau of Investigation. So the idea that there's some huge distance between, Twitter and the federal government has now been completely obliterated. This gentleman, no doubt, redacted a certain amount of documents that were supposed to be revealed, and the best is certainly yet to come from the Twitter files. But even without some sort of, text message from Joe Biden directly to Vijaya Gadde asking to take down the Hunter Biden story, we're seeing a clear violation of the spirit of the First Amendment, according to Rokana. And I would argue that him saying the spirit of the First Amendment is more or less just regime speak for we're fucking with the First Amendment right now, and this is an outright violation. Obviously, he was trying to give himself plausible deniability. And so we can see that Elon Musk exited is the term that's being put into the public sphere about this, and by Elon directly. And his explanation was unconvincing. So he was given to explain himself first. Obviously, you can't explain your way out of some shit like that. Let's take a quick look at James Baker. Let's see if there's any chance he's a neutral, good faith actor. Let's see here. James Baker. It's a former American. And we're using Wikipedia, by the way, because it's a regime source. James Baker is a former American government official at the Department of Justice, general counsel for the Federal Bureau of Investigation. Let's see here. So he was involved in the release of the Steele dossier, I think, or some other bullshit during the Trump administration. But this is the main thing that I think is interesting to look at. He's literally writing for a justice-focused blog called Lawfare. We'll take a look at Lawfare. It's a blog dedicated to national security issues. It's published by the Lawfare Institute, and it's received attention for articles on Donald Trump's presidency. So is there a chance that this guy who's writing for this blog called Lawfare is acting as a lawyer for either the FBI or one of the largest, most influential corporations? I don't know about largest, but one of the most influential corporations in the world. And is it possible that he's engaging in some lawfare to target Donald Trump a dude who, he seems to have it out for. So what I want to do before we take a quick look at the crow that these people should be eating is take a quick look at a gentleman named Edward Bernays. This dude is known as the father of public relations. And for instance, he's on some real Don Draper Mad Men shit. I don't know if he's pimping like that, but he's on some Don Draper shit. He popularized female smoking by branding cigarettes as torches of freedom. Anyways, more importantly, he wrote this book called Propaganda. We're going to read a couple just quick lines from it. But he put what he was theorizing in this book in 1928 into practice. He literally helped, if you've heard of the banana republics that the CIA helped overthrow. This is a dude who basically was literally handling that. So he put his ideas into practice. We're going to take a couple quick lines from here because what's happened here. Let's see if these lines sound familiar. Based on what's happened with this situation with Twitter, where a dude who happens to be in a few key positions, a lawyer at the FBI, a lawyer at Twitter, he happens to be the guy who winds up being in control of releasing this key information or not releasing it to the public. And lo and behold, he makes the decision seemingly to not release some of it because it might be damaging to certain people. So the conscious and intelligent manipulation of the organized habits and opinions of the masses is an important element in democratic society. Those who manipulate this unseen mechanism of society constitute an invisible government, which is the true ruling power of our country. Now, if you were to translate that into, today's context, you might be talking about some sort of deep state actors. Obviously, that's a term that's used. But he goes on to say, and this is an interesting thing, right? Because Elon Musk is certainly a person who's, in charge of what information gets to the public now as well, at least within the context of Twitter. I think you could say he got there through more legitimate means than this former FBI lawyer who was certainly shuffled right over to an influential tech giant. Nevertheless, Elon is one such gentleman. And so let's look at this sentence here. Our invisible governors are, in many cases, unaware of the identity of their fellow members in the inner cabinet. So Elon just bought this company, and he's not aware of the fact that he may be aware that this guy works for the company, and he may be setting some traps, so we'll leave that possibility open, but he's not aware of the fact that, this guy's going to be like vetting the documents, supposedly. Somehow the documents get to this guy to vet when they're not supposed to. One way or another, this guy was able to vet documents that he wasn't supposed to be able to look at all. They govern us by their qualities of natural leadership, their ability to supply needed ideas, and by their key position in the societal structure. So in this case, I'd argue not supplying the idea is the important move. But nevertheless, the key position in the societal structure is, obviously a huge part of this. It is they who pull the wires which control the public mind, who harness old social forces and contrive new ways to bind and guide the world. So, you can see how that could apply to today. We've got this guy withholding some very potentially damaging information at a key time. He's harnessing an old social force. There is no old social force more than, the tribalism of politics, or long enough ago in history, the tribalism of, one's literal tribe. And then there was one last part that I wanted to take a look at. From our leaders and media they used to reach the public, we accept the evidence and the demarcation of issues bearing upon public question. From some a teacher, be it a minister, a favorite essayist, or merely prevailing opinion, we accept a standardized code of social conduct to which we conform most of the time. So we trust, at least ideally, there was just this interesting monk debate which revealed how little people trusted, but theoretically, at least, the model of society would suggest we should trust the mainstream media. You can trust your minister, some writer that you read, your teachers, your professors in schools, or even just the general notion of the public discourse. The idea that you could trust those is pretty key. However, they're a shortcut that we use because the logistics of filtering through all the relevant information to the a nation of hundreds of millions of people on a political level is just impossible to do as an individual. So, but you would hope that you could trust the people who are filtering that information. But obviously, if they're being very deliberate about what does and doesn't get out, then that's not the case. And then, lastly, there's consequently a vast and continuous effort going on to capture the minds in the interest of some policy or commodity or idea. So, there's a constant effort going on to push a certain agenda. Obviously, that's true in the case of the two political parties. He also gets into how the political parties themselves are just part of like the logistical framework to filter information to people. But the idea that so many people would come up with this obvious take of like, oh, it's not a direct First Amendment violation, when there's clearly a huge issue and all the information isn't even out yet. They're being so definitive. Batya is over here basically chuckling and laughing about it, and it's just rather interesting to see. So let's see what they had to say, though. Let's give them a chance to at least cover it. Batya is not on today. Maybe we'll look at her Twitter and see what she's saying.
Welcome to Rising. We have an excellent show for you today.
Enjoying
it's the intro. So,
students plus Amish flu season. But first, an update to Matt Taibbi says the official responsible for sending him the documents, Twitter's deputy general counsel and former FBI general counsel Jim Baker, was fired after releasing the Twitter files to both Taibbi and journalist Bari Weiss without the knowledge of upper management.
So now Elon Musk claims that Baker exited over his, quote, possible role in suppression of information important to the public dialogue. According to reporting from the New York Post, while still working for the FBI, Baker was heavily involved in Russiagate investigations launched by the Justice Department. He even testified at the trial of disgraced Clinton lawyer Michael Sussman. So the situation seems to be this guy, Jim Baker, worked for the FBI a while ago. He was hired by Twitter under the previous regime, may have played some role. I mean, we saw already some emails from him in the first batch of the Twitter files where he said where he was kind of pro the hacked materials explanation, or that we should stick to the hacked materials explanation until we know more. So he was defending the decision. It's conceivable that he was even more involved in the decision than those emails suggest. He would be someone with contacts actually in the FBI from having worked there. Honestly, he, more than anything I've seen thus far, raises the possibility of some kind of back channel between law enforcement or national security people to be like, hey, this story does not look good. You should do something about it, which we still haven't actually seen despite the Twitter files.
So this fucking guy, he should be eating crow right now. He should be eating crow. He said he completely agreed with the idea that there's nothing even, approaching a First Amendment issue here, as Batya put it, and spun it into an issue about Elon and China, which may be a valid issue, but nevertheless is irrelevant to this. So, swing and a miss for Robby here, even though I think I'd argue that he's not even swinging. There should be an outright correction. And rather than continuing to make definitive statements, they should leave open the possibility that more evidence could come. I mean, literally, the evidence is like on the verge of coming out, you would assume, as soon as Bari Weiss gets around to it. And so the idea that they are just still playing with this is kind of hilarious. This is not a good answer. And, you would hope they could give fucking Batya a call and have her issue some sort of correction, or at least kick the can down the road type of thing, if not an outright correction.
Come on, I still have questions about that. So, but now the newest wrinkle is, so he works for Twitter, and he was reviewing these documents to see what they'd be allowed to release from a legal standpoint. I think it might be the case that he was like Vijaya Gad's deputy, she being the head of Trust and Safety. This important. I think maybe he worked from her, so then it fell to him when she exited the company. Apparently, Elon Musk was not aware that this guy was still working for the company.
This is the bit that I would like to get to. It is being reported as though it is kind of nefarious, that no one could have known. I mean, I don't want to overstate it, but that this is kind of a rat that's kind of messed up the process of this disclosure that's supposed to be this big get for journalists like Matt Taibbi, who I think are very rightly interested in parsing this information and letting us know what was been going on inside of Twitter. I think that's a good thing. After all of the discourse around the purges from Twitter and Elon Musk discussions about firing so many staff members and cleaning house, it is confusing to me how this kind of known open, he wasn't an undercover agent or something, this known open FBI agent was not just still working at the company, or former FBI employee, was not just working at the company, but was in the position to review the documents that were being put out for the very purpose of transparency.
Right. And Elon wasn't aware. And then when he became...
So, again, earlier, like, at least the possibility of him putting up some kind of ruse should be discussed or something like that. They might get to that later. I don't even know. But anyways, neither one of them took the chance to just outright fucking condemn this. And I don't believe they did later on. Let's kind of like breeze through it. We're going to end this video, though, because it was mostly about anticipating greatly Batya's eventual response.
They fired this person,
right?
Because he was holding up the process in some way.
And there was some discussion about whether or not he had over-redacted FBI-related information. I mean, there could be really real implications to this.
I mean, it sounds like he's the wolf.
Yeah, he may have done that, Brianna. You would. Fucking ideologically driven clown.
Grandmother's clothes, and you're like, oh, what big ears you have, and like it's pretty obvious.
It's pretty
him.
obvious. and I don't know. It doesn't seem to me that there's a ton of accountability as
what big
as
suppression reflexes you have,
exactly.
grandmother.
I mean, the people who are sympathetic, as I am, to these disclosures, many of them are framing this as though it's like another level of deception by the people who,
It's funny how even when she's like talking about another group, like the people who are friendly to these releases, as I am, are this criticism. It's just like, why generalize if you be more specific?
Want to have these kind of partisan outcomes coming out of these social media companies. At what point is there any responsibility for the now CEO of Twitter, who's been in charge now for a not insignificant period of time, to have oversight over these things? And if he's still letting this kind of stuff fall through the cracks, at what point do we have to start to acknowledge that some of the mistakes that were made at Twitter before might also have been because of a lack of oversight and negligence just like this?
Well, I don't know.
Trying to get cover for the ideologically motivated actions of this fucking FBI agent. How often when is the last time you saw Bree stick up for an FBI agent?
You said he's been in charge for a not insignificant amount of time.
And that's still.
All right, fuck these guys. We're ending this video. Worthless commentary. We'll see what Batya says. She didn't say anything on Twitter. I checked my phone. But maybe we'll do a quick update when she does. Thank you.